Additional comments, Osamu or Guido?
Well, I'm not exactly an expert, but I would think that there are considerable commonality, but the biggest difference between US and Japan is vertically integrated from generation to distribution on a regional basis. There are, of course, independent power producers here and there, but it's predominantly vertically integrated, whereas in the US, there's a much more complex mesh of, I think, generators and distributors, etc. And there's also a difference in terms of the regulatory system, in terms of the way the regulation works. Japan, it's one regulator. In the US, there's a kind of state level as well as. So that's a very big difference, I think. And in terms of legacy system, if I may touch upon that, as Bill has already done it, I totally agree. One cannot change from one system to the other overnight, and we cannot we cannot stop the electricity for a long time. So we cannot completely shift. We have to use what we have and tweak it to accommodate more renewable energy, to accommodate electric vehicles, etc. But in doing so, in order to reduce costs, we probably want to think about a little bit about how to standardize as well at the same time. So I think that's my
great. Now, by my way of keeping track here, those were questions 1 and 3, and I am going to try to shift gears right now and kind of get Guido into this discussion, because there was a second question having to do with technology integration. You have these legacy systems, and you're trying to get innovators to try to build, demand response. You're trying to build distributed generation systems to make greater inroads to address many of the desires that we want in a legacy system. So how do we go about achieving that, given that these are legacy systems and that the governance structure may vary from state to state or from region to region? From a private sector perspective, I mean, what do you tell the guys who are innovating with new software solutions and new systems integration solutions to contend with this very complex issue?
It is the question indeed about, I was when then Okimoto was starting to ask his question, I know there would be very good questions. So it's the question there about how do you change that in a utility environment where there's not a lot of.
Well, how do you accommodate innovation and the introduction of new technology in such a very complex system?
I think several things. First, I was last week or the week before, I think I was sitting next to the CEO of a global utility, National Grid, Steve Holliday, and I said to him, we talked about the issues around policy and regulation, and I said to him, it's almost interesting the environment you work in, because it's almost like me going to the IBM CEO and say, hey Sam, I have this great plan. We invest this money, and then our customers will buy less, right? And you would kick me out of you would kick me out of the office, and it was my last day at IBM, right? But that's what we sometimes, in a certain way, are expecting from utility companies, right? So is the regulatory model in place, the business model in place for them to be incented to look for some of these solutions. But I think that, again, this is a topic in itself. I think a lot of things you can do to foster collaboration. I think a lot of utilities, I think we sometimes underestimate, although we like to say they are risk averse for good reasons, that they are slow to change, etc. But I think we sometimes go a little bit too far in our criticism. I think there's an enormous amount of skill and capability, and I see a lot of utility companies who do want to move. In the Gridwise Alliance, I'm very passionate that the utility companies are the core of our alliance, right? I want really to help change and transform from within the system. But for example, we talked earlier about collaboration. One of the things we at IBM have done in 2007, we looked at the issue around some of the difficulties in changing and said, so what if we could bring together a select group of utilities from around the world who all share a vision about what a smart grid is, who all are willing to, and also all realize that the smart grid solution is a very broad range of solutions. It's not one thing, right? It goes from generation to end use, it's the whole spectrum. So who all acknowledge that you cannot, nor do you want to develop all those solutions at once, and want to share whatever they develop, who want to work on impacting energy policy, work on standards together, etc. Could that help and reduce the risk for them and help them to move quicker? And we decided to do that, and we set it up, and we have now 5 US utilities, 3 utilities from Europe, 1 utility from Brazil, 1 utility from India, 1 utility from Australia, hopefully soon 1 utility from Japan. China. And then we call it a day because if you want to collaborate, you make the group too big, it's difficult. But it's very exciting to see those utilities from around the world work together and sit in a room and go deep on key topics and start sharing IP and assets between them. So I think collaboration is clearly one model, and I think we sometimes underestimate there are clearly utilities who do want to help push the envelope. I think another question was about security. That I think that is a critical topic. I'm not a security expert, but the one thing I would like to say is that there have been other industries who went through major digitization and transformation from the banking to telecom, etc., where I think security is as much or also very much an issue. Where standards and technology and the awareness that it's an issue which needs to be addressed, I think has done some tremendous thing, and in that sense I'm also optimistic and links back into the work NIST is doing on standards, but it's clearly important we need to address adequately to help move the ball.
Thank you.